Leaving the translation wing, you feel a small sense of accomplishment. You've successfully shepherded a piece of raw data from the frontier of the empire to the very people who can unlock its secrets. It's a quiet, essential part of the great intellectual machine, and you are one of its key cogs. But your work isn't done. Hassan also tasked you with arranging for a new copy to be made of a particularly fragile Persian manuscript on the history of the Sasanian kings. The original is too delicate for regular handling by scholars. This means a trip to the scriptorium, the workshop of the Warraquin. The Warraquin are the stationers, the copyists, the binders, and the booksellers all rolled into one. They are the master craftsmen of the book world, the indispensable technicians who turn abstract ideas into physical, tangible objects. The scriptorium is in a separate building, connected to the library by a covered walkway. As you get closer, a new smell replaces the dry scent of old paper. It's the sharp, metallic, slightly acidic smell of fresh ink. It is the lifeblood of this entire enterprise, and today it is the source of a heated, if friendly, debate. As you step inside, you see the source of the argument. In the center of the room, standing between two rows of scribes bent diligently over their slanted desks, are two men. The first is Ibn Firas, the master scribe, a man whose entire life is a study in precision. His beard is neatly trimmed, his hands, though stained with ink, are steady, and his eyes are sharp from a lifetime of discerning the minute differences between letter forms. The second man is an alchemist named Khalid, a regular visitor to the House of Wisdom, a man whose tunic is perpetually dusted with strange powders, and whose fingers are often stained with chemicals of a more exotic hue than simple black ink. I tell you, it is a disaster waiting to happen, Ibn Firas is saying, holding up a freshly inscribed page of paper. Your so-called improvement will eat through this page before the year is out. A book must last 1,000 years, not a single season. Khalid the alchemist scoffs, a good-natured smile on his face. 1,000 years of boring, pale gray. My ink is black. Black as a starless night. It has character. It bites into the page. It makes a statement. You have walked into the middle of the great ink debate, a battle that is being waged in scriptoriums all across the city. Ibn Firas is a champion of the old ways. The ink he advocates is the traditional carbon ink, made from soot, often from burning oil lamps. Mixed with a binder, usually gum arabic, it is stable, it is permanent, and it is chemically neutral. It sits on the surface of the paper or parchment and does not fade. It is reliable. It is, as Khalid points out, also a little bit gray. Khalid is a proponent of the newer, more fashionable iron gall ink. This is a far more complex chemical concoction made by mixing iron salts, often called vitriol, with tannic acid, which is extracted from oak galls, the small hard growths that wasps create on oak trees. This ink undergoes a chemical reaction with the paper, biting into it, as Khalid says, and oxidizing to a deep, rich, velvety black. It is beautiful. It is also, as Ibn Firas points out, highly acidic. Over time, it can literally burn holes through the page, a phenomenon that future manuscript conservators will know all too well as ink burn. You step forward, holding out the Persian manuscript you need copied. Ibn Firas, I have a new commission for you. Both men turn to you, happy for a third party to enter their stalemate. Ibn Firas takes the old manuscript with reverence, but Khalid peers at it with a different kind of interest. Look at that, the alchemist says, pointing to the faded brownish ink of the ancient text. That is the weakness of your carbon ink, my friend. It can be smudged. It can be washed away. My ink becomes part of the paper itself. It is indelible. This is the heart of a debate that historians still have. Why did the scribal world gradually shift towards the more destructive iron gall ink? Was it simply a matter of aesthetics, the desire for a blacker, more impressive line? Or were there other factors? Some scholars argue that iron gall ink was actually easier to make in large quantities, a key consideration in the booming book market of Baghdad. You are witnessing a living historical transition. The moment when the practical and aesthetic desires of the present clash with the long-term needs of the future. You, as a librarian, are uniquely positioned to comment. Khalid has a point about permanence, you say, your voice calm and measured, but Ibn Firas is right to be cautious. Just last week I was examining a legal text, not 50 years old, and the ink had already started to ghost through to the other side of the paper. You then add a piece of knowledge that is part of the strange and wonderful lore of your profession, and that is not even to mention the alchemists who add things like wine or pomegranate rinds or even honey to their mixtures. The variations are endless, and not all of them are stable. The precise recipes for ink were often jealously guarded secrets, part of the intellectual property of a master scribe or a particular workshop. This lack of standardization meant that every batch of ink was a new experiment, with potentially disastrous long-term consequences for the books you are trying to preserve. You help them reach a compromise. For the main body of the text, Ibn Firas will use his trusted, stable carbon ink. But for the chapter headings and the colophon, he will use a specially prepared, less acidic version of Khalid's iron gall ink, to give the manuscript the prestige and visual impact it deserves. Both men seem satisfied with this solution. Their argument was never truly angry. It was a manifestation of the very spirit of this place. The constant, creative tension between tradition and innovation, between the duty to preserve the past and the irresistible urge to improve upon it. Just as the ink debate in the scriptorium finds its peaceful resolution, a new sound begins to build outside, washing over the entire complex. It is the second call to prayer, the dur, announcing that the sun has passed its zenith. It is the midday signal, a pause in the day's labor for devotion, for rest, and for food. The hum of activity in the house of wisdom softens, scribes lay down their pens, scholars close their books, and a general, quiet exodus begins towards the small mosque attached to the complex, or back out into the city for a meal. Your own lunch is, as always, a simple affair. You did not go home. Instead, you unwrap a small cloth bundle you brought with you this morning. Inside are 2 pieces of flatbread, a handful of dried dates, and a small wedge of salty white cheese. It is the fuel of a working man, not the feast of a wealthy courtier. You take your humble meal and head to the place you always go. The central courtyard. You find a spot on a low stone bench in the shade of a date palm, its fronds rustling in the slight breeze that offers a meager defense against the growing heat of the afternoon. The sound of the fountain is a cool, liquid counterpoint to the baked warmth of the stone. You eat slowly, savoring the simple tastes. The sweetness of the dates, the salt of the cheese, the plain, honest flavor of the bread. From this vantage point, you can observe the life of the courtyard. You are not alone. Other scholars and staff have had the same idea. They sit in small groups, their lunches just as simple as yours, their conversations a low intellectual murmur. Today, however, your attention is drawn to a debate that is already in full swing near the central fountain. It is not a quiet conversation, it has the energy of a good-natured intellectual duel. The 2 main combatants are Suleiman, a respected theologian in his 60s, with a neatly trimmed white beard and an air of unshakable certainty, and a younger man named Ahmed, a physician and philosopher known for his sharp mind and even sharper tongue. They are surrounded by a small audience of other scholars who have gathered to watch the sport. You are too far away to hear every word, but you can pick up the key phrases that float across the courtyard on the breeze. Their topic, it seems, is one of the great philosophical questions of the age. The nature of reality itself, a debate inherited from 2 long-dead Greeks named Plato and Aristotle. The form of the thing is the true reality, Suleiman declares, his hand chopping the air for emphasis. The idea of justice is more real and eternal than any single just act. The perfect heavenly concept of a horse is more real than that. Sway-backed nag tied up outside the gate. Ahmed, the younger man, laughs. It is not a mocking laugh, but one of genuine intellectual delight. My dear Suleiman, You are chasing shadows on a cave wall. Reality is what we can touch, what we can measure. The only horseness that matters is the one with 4 legs that can carry you from here to the Tigris. Your perfect form is a ghost, a beautiful poem for the soul, but useless to the mind. This is the very essence of the intellectual ferment happening here. They are taking the profound philosophical heritage of the Greeks and wrestling with it, trying to reconcile it with their own faith and their own observations of the world. This public display of argument, known as a majlis, is a central part of the scholarly culture. It is not just about finding truth, it is about the sharpening of one's own mind against the whetstone of another's. It is a performance of intellect, and a good performance earns you respect and renown. This leads to a question that historians still debate. How formal were these sessions? Were they scheduled? Public events with a moderator, almost like a university seminar? Or were they, like the one you are witnessing, spontaneous eruptions of intellectual passion? The answer is likely both. While the Caliph himself hosted grand formal debates, the day-to-day life of the House of Wisdom was probably filled with these smaller, informal clashes of ideas. You watch as the audience murmurs its approval, not for one side or the other, but for a particularly clever turn of phrase or a well-reasoned point. You then hear Ahmed say something that makes the air feel suddenly charged, a little dangerous. Suleiman, trying to corner him, says, "So you would have us trust the flawed senses of a man over the divine perfection of God's creation?" Ahmed's response is quick and bold. "I would have us use the divine gift of reason, which God gave us, to understand the creation. Truth is truth, whether it is found in the Quran or in the logic of a pagan Greek, and reason is the only scale we have to weigh it." A hush falls over the small crowd. This is walking a very fine line. To suggest that reason is the ultimate arbiter, to place it on the same level as revelation, is a radical, thrilling, and potentially heretical idea. This is the other great debate surrounding your workplace. How much intellectual freedom was truly allowed? Where was the line between acceptable philosophical inquiry and blasphemy, Zandaka? The Caliph Al-Man, a rationalist himself, encouraged these debates, but even he had his limits. Ahmed is flying close to the sun. The tension is broken by Suleiman, who simply smiles, a look of grudging respect in his eyes. "You will be a formidable heretic one day, young man," he says, and the whole group breaks into laughter. The moment of danger has passed, transformed into a joke. You finish your bread and cheese, but you feel as though you have consumed a feast. This is your real nourishment. The quiet, solitary work you do in the library is the foundation. But this, the living, clashing, laughing, and thinking of these brilliant minds, is the magnificent structure that is built upon it. The midday break ends as it began, with the muezzin's call to prayer for the Asr, the afternoon worship. The scholars in the courtyard disperse, the great debate on the nature of reality postponed for another day. You rise from your bench, the heat of the afternoon sun now a heavy blanket on your shoulders, and head back towards the cool, silent embrace of the library. As you re-enter the main hall, a new challenge is already waiting for you. A man is standing near Al-Hassan's desk, looking flustered. You recognize him as Qasim, one of the astronomers, while the philosophers and theologians wrestle with the inner world of logic and revelation. Qasim and his colleagues are consumed with the outer world, the vast and intricate clockwork of the heavens. It is simply unacceptable, Qasim is saying, his voice a low, frustrated buzz. He is unrolling a large, beautifully illustrated star chart on the chief librarian's desk. It is a masterpiece of calligraphy and draftsmanship, the constellations depicted not just as points of light, but as the mythical figures of Greek lore, Andromeda, Perseus, the great bear Ursa Major. This is Ptolemy's Almagest, the greatest work of astronomy ever produced, but it is 1,000 years old. The heavens are not a static painting, they move, and our calculations are beginning to drift. Al-Hassan looks at the star chart with a practiced, weary eye. The caliph has spent a fortune on the finest copies of Ptolemy. What more do you need? New data, Qasim says, his frustration boiling over. We need to make our own observations. We have built the Shamasia Observatory for this very purpose. We are tracking the planets. We are measuring the precession of the equinoxes. But to do that, we need the most accurate tools, and to build those, we need the most advanced mathematics. I need the latest work by Al-Khwarizmi. This is a snapshot of the scientific revolution that is happening all around you. The scholars of the House of Wisdom did not see themselves as mere curators of ancient knowledge. Their motto, famously articulated by the philosopher Al-Kindi, was to accept truth from whatever source it comes. But they didn't just accept it, they tested it, they challenged it, and where they found it lacking, they improved upon it. They were standing on the shoulders of giants like Ptolemy, but they were not content to simply admire the view. They wanted to build higher. Al-Hassan turns to you. The problem has now been delegated. Find Qasim Everything We Have by Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, and be quick about it. His complaining is disturbing the calligraphers. You nod and lead the still grumbling astronomer towards the mathematics section. Al-Khwarizmi is another of the titans of this institution. A Persian scholar, he is the man who effectively invented algebra. The very word comes from the title of his most famous book, Al-Jabr, and his work is the cutting edge of mathematical thought. Finding his work is easier than finding the specific Aristotle manuscript from this morning. Al-Khwarizmi is a contemporary, a local hero, and his works are in high demand. The library keeps a special, accessible section for them. You pull out a slim volume, its title, written in bold, clear script on the first page, Z.J. al-Sindhind. This is not his book on algebra, you tell Qasim. These are his astronomical tables. Qasim takes the book, and his entire demeanor changes. The frustration vanishes, replaced by the focused intensity of a master craftsman seeing a new and powerful tool. He flips through the pages, which are not filled with flowing prose, but with grids and columns of numbers, a dense, dizzying forest of data. These tables are the practical result of the new mathematics, a way to calculate the position of the sun, moon, and planets for any given date. Yes, this is it, he murmurs, his finger tracing a column of figures. He based these on the Indian astronomical methods, but he has corrected them, adapted them for the meridian of Baghdad. This is precisely what we need. This book represents a key aspect of the scientific method being born here, the synthesis of knowledge from different cultures. Al-Khwarizmi took the observational data and traditions of the Indians, the geometric and theoretical framework of the Greeks, and the computational power of the new numbering system that was also coming from India. And he fused them together into something new and more powerful than the sum of its parts. This leads to a fascinating and obscure question for future historians. What was the physical relationship between the House of Wisdom and the new observatories? Were the observatories an official department of the Beit al-Hikmah with astronomers like Qasim on the payroll? Or were they separate royally funded institutions that simply had a close working relationship with the library? The sources are unclear, and the exact institutional org chart of the Abbasid scientific enterprise remains a tantalizing puzzle. You, carrying books between the library and the astronomers, are living in the undocumented connective tissue of that very system. Qasim is overjoyed. With these tables, he says, his eyes shining, we can refine the design of our new astrolabe. We can take a more accurate measurement of the Earth's circumference. We can fix the errors in Ptolemy's map of the world. His ambition is boundless. He is not just looking at the stars, he is remeasuring the cosmos. He takes the book and thanks you, not with the frantic desperation of the philosopher Jabir, but with the crisp, professional gratitude of a fellow technician. He is a man with a problem, and you have just handed him the solution. He strides away, the book of tables tucked under his arm, a new weapon in his quest to impose the beautiful, clean order of mathematics onto the messy, mysterious movements of the heavens. The library settles back into its quiet, studious rhythm after the astronomer's departure. The only sounds are the soft rustle of turning pages and the distant, rhythmic scratching of a scribe's pen from the scriptorium. You are carefully shelving a heavy copy of Euclid's Elements. The leather of the binding cool and smooth under your fingers. It is in these moments of quiet order that you feel the most content. You are a guardian of patterns, both the geometric patterns within the book and the physical pattern of the library. As meticulous organization, this peaceful moment is shattered, not by a sound, but by a sudden shift in the quality of the light. A shadow has fallen across the entrance of the library. You look up and see two figures standing there, silhouetted against the bright sun of the courtyard. They are not scholars. They are guards from the Caliph's personal retinue, their curved swords and polished helmets marking them as men of the palace. Between them stands a third man, a hajib or chamberlain, whose quiet presence commands more authority than 100 armed soldiers. He is dressed in immaculate, cream-colored silk, and he carries a slim, ebony staff of office. His face is impassive, his movements economical and precise. He doesn't look around with the curious awe of a first-time visitor. He looks at the library as if it were just another room in the Caliph's vast and complex palace. The scent of expensive musk, the perfume of the court, precedes him into the room, a scent so different from the library's smell of paper and ink that it feels like an atmospheric invasion. Al-Hassan rises from his desk immediately. The entire library seems to hold its breath. This is not a casual visit. This is the palace, reaching into the heart of the House of Wisdom. The chamberlain does not raise his voice. He does need to. The commander of the faithful sends his greetings, he says, his voice flat and formal. He is in discussion with the ambassador from the Sind, and a question of calculation has arisen. The Caliph requires the work of Al-Khwarizmi, the one concerning the Hindu art of reckoning. The request is both specific and significant. This is a perfect illustration of the Caliph al-Ma'mun's character. He was a distant patron. He was an active driving force behind the intellectual work being done here. A philosophical debate with a foreign dignitary was not just a matter of courtly politeness for him. It was an opportunity to learn, to clarify, to acquire new knowledge. This direct intervention is a mainstream historical understanding of his reign. He was a ruler who was also a scholar, personally steering the ship of knowledge. Al-Hassan bows his head slightly. It is our honor to serve. We will fetch it at once. The pressure in the room is immense. This is not like finding a book for a flustered philosopher. This is a royal command, and failure, or even a slight delay, is not an option. Al-Hassan turns to you. Come, he says, his voice tight. He leads you past the main library stacks towards a heavy reinforced wooden door at the back of the hall that you have only ever seen opened a handful of times. This door does not lead to another reading room or a storage area. It leads to the inner sanctum, the Khazanat, al-Hikmah proper, the treasury of wisdom. This was likely the original core of the library. The personal collection of the Caliph's father, Harun al-Rashid, and it now houses the rarest, most valuable, and most important manuscripts. The existence and nature of this special collection is a point of debate for historians. Was the entire House of Wisdom a single, open institution, or was there this kind of tiered access with a public-facing library and a private royally controlled core? Your hand, trembling slightly as Al-Hassan turns the large brass key in the lock, is a vote for the latter. The air inside is different, cooler, drier, and with the concentrated scent of very old parchment. There are no reading tables here, only floor-to-ceiling niches, each with a locked wooden gate. Al-Hassan goes to a specific niche, unlocks it, and from within, he carefully withdraws a slim, but beautifully bound, codex. This is the book, Kitab al-Jam wa Tafriq bi Hizb al-Hind, or the Book of Addition and Subtraction, according to the Hindu calculation. It is arguably one of the most important books in the world, though its true impact won to be understood for centuries. This is the book that introduced the revolutionary Hindu numeral system, the digits 0 through 9, and the concept of the decimal place, to the Arabic-speaking world. You get a brief, tantalizing glimpse of a page. It is filled with these strange new symbols, which look so much simpler and more elegant than the clumsy letters of the alphabet that were previously used to represent numbers. A quirky, almost unbelievable fact is that this book, which would fundamentally change the course of mathematics and science, would later be lost in its original Arabic. Future generations would only know it through its Latin translation, and the author's name, Al-Khwarizmi, would be mangled into the Latin algorithmi, from which the word algorithm is derived. You are holding the lost original of a concept that will one day run the entire world. Al-Hassan carries the book back out to the main hall. He does not hand it directly to the chamberlain. He first places it on a clean silk cloth that the chamberlain has laid out on the desk. The chamberlain then carefully folds the cloth around the book, transforming it from a mere object of study into a protected imperial treasure. The chamberlain gives a curt, formal nod. The caliph is generous, he says, which is the courtly way of saying, "Thank you." He and his guards then turn and sweep out of the library. Their silent departure as dramatic as their arrival. The library is quiet once more, but the air is still vibrating with the encounter. You have just seen the raw power of the state intersect with the quiet world of ideas, and you are reminded that your peaceful haven of knowledge exists only because the man in the golden palace wills it to. The brief, intense drama of the caliph's request leaves a tangible ripple in the library's atmosphere. It is a stark reminder of who you work for and why this place exists. It also seems to have nudged the sun a little faster across the sky. The light slanting through the high windows is now warmer, softer, the color of old honey. The most intense heat of the day has passed, and the long, quiet hours of the late afternoon are stretching before you. This is the time you often dedicate to your most delicate and patient work. It's not about finding books or sorting new arrivals. It's about saving them. You are not just a librarian, you are a conservator, a book doctor whose job is to mend the slow, inevitable injuries inflicted by time and use. You retrieve the fragile Persian manuscript from the master scribe, Ibn Firas having made a note of the commission. Now, your task is to stabilize the original before it is placed in the archives. You take the manuscript not to a grand reading desk, but to a small, quiet corner of the library, a space reserved for this purpose. Your work table is cleared of everything except your tools. They are not the tools of a scholar, but of a master craftsman: small, sharp knives, bone folders for making crisp creases, burnishing stones for smoothing surfaces, a pot of warm, gelatinous glue, and an assortment of repair materials. The book you are working on is a treasure. It is a copy of the Code Namag, the Book of Kings, a history of the pre-Islamic Persian emperors. Its pages are not parchment or paper, but papyrus. This was the ancient world's original paper, made from the pounded and pressed pith of the Nile reed. It is incredibly light and flexible, but also brittle. Over the centuries, it has become dry and fragile. The edges of the pages are crumbling, and one of the first leaves has a long, diagonal tear that threatens to sever the page in two. You handle the book with a surgeon's care, opening it to the damaged page. Papyrus presents a unique challenge. Unlike parchment, which is tough, or paper, which is fibrous, old papyrus has the consistency of a dried leaf. A clumsy move could turn a simple tear into a pile of dust. Your first step is to gently clean the surface. Using a soft brush made from camel hair, you carefully whisk away the accumulated dust of decades, maybe centuries. You work slowly, your breath held, watching the ancient, elegant Pahlavi script emerge more clearly from under the gray film. Now for the tear. This is where your art lies. You cannot simply glue the two edges together. The tear would remain a line of weakness. You must reinforce it. From a small wooden box, you take out your primary repair material, fresh, new strips of papyrus, cut so thin they are almost translucent. This is a fascinating detail that is often lost in the grand sweep of history. Even though paper was becoming the dominant medium, the specialized skills and materials of the older technologies were kept alive for this very purpose, for the repair and conservation of ancient texts. The House of Wisdom was just about the future. It was also the custodian of the deep past. You carefully paint a thin, almost invisible layer of your adhesive onto the new papyrus strips. The glue is another marvel of your craft. It's not a simple paste of flour and water. It is a precisely made fish glue, rendered from the swim bladders of sturgeons, a recipe that has been refined over generations. It is strong, flexible when dry, and, most importantly, reversible. A future conservator, hundreds of years from now, could, with care, undo your work if a better method was discovered. You are making your repairs with a deep and humble respect for both the past and the future. This raises a question that still occupies the minds of modern conservators. How much repair is too much? Is the goal to make the book look new again, or is it to stabilize the damage while leaving the book's history and age visible? This debate between restoration and conservation is a modern one, but the choices you are making at your workbench are its ancient precursor. You choose a middle path. You are not trying to hide the tear, but to mend it, to honor its history as a wound that has been healed. With a pair of fine tweezers, you lay the adhesive-coated strip over the tear, gently pressing it down. You then take a small, smooth, polished stone, an agate, cool to the touch, and burnish the repair, rubbing it gently until the new papyrus strip has fused with the old, the fibers of the new holding the fibers of the old together in a strong but delicate bond. You work for what feels like hours, your focus absolute. The world outside your small table, the city, the court, the debates of the philosophers, all of it fades away. There is only you, the fragile page, and the patient, healing work of your hands. You are not just fixing a book, you are mending a broken line of transmission, ensuring that the stories of the long-dead Persian kings will be able to speak to another generation. It is a quiet, anonymous, and profoundly important act. You are a guardian not just of things, but of the fragile, precious, and easily broken thread of memory itself. The heavy, reinforced door of the treasury of wisdom clicks shut, its lock turning with a sound of deep finality. The precious manuscript on Hindu numerals is safely back in its niche. But even though the book is gone, the idea of it remains in the room, a palpable presence. You have just been a part of a direct link in a chain of knowledge that stretches from a mathematician's mind through the caliph's court and into the future. Al-Hassan, the chief librarian, stands for a moment, his hand still on the large brass key. He seems less like a stern administrator and more like a high priest who has just concluded a sacred rite. He turns to you, a rare, thoughtful expression on his face. "You see," he says, his voice a low rumble, "why we guard these so carefully. Some books are merely wise. Others are dangerous. They contain ideas that can unravel the way we see the world." His words pique your curiosity beyond your professional duty. You have handled hundreds of books, but this one felt different. It was not ancient, like the Persian history, nor was it a grand philosophical treatise like Aristotle's work. It was a slim, unassuming volume, and yet it was treated with more security than any other. "Master," you say, your voice hesitant, taking a small risk. "I have heard the mathematicians speak of it, but I have never understood. What is this Hindu reckoning? What makes it so dangerous?" Al-Hassan looks at you, a long appraising gaze. He sees not just a junior librarian, but someone who has proven their dedication and intelligence throughout the day. In a rare moment of mentorship, he makes a decision. A dangerous idea is only a threat if it is misunderstood, he says. He walks back to his desk, where the book he had shown the astronomer Kasim earlier, Al-Khwarizmi's Astronomical Tables, is still waiting to be reshelved. The ZG uses the same system. Look. He opens the book not to the dense tables of data, but to the introductory chapter, where Al-Khwarizmi explains the mathematical principles upon which the tables are built. And there, you see it. A line of 9 strange, elegant symbols, and then a 10th that looks like a small hollow circle or a dot. These are the Hindu numerals, Al-Hassan explains, his finger tracing the line. Each symbol has a fixed value, 1, 2, 3. A child can learn them, but the genius is not in the symbols themselves. It is in how they are used. It is a place, value system. He takes out a wax tablet and a stylus. In the old way, he says, writing with the familiar Greek alphabetic numerals. If you want to write 23, you write kappa for 20, and gamma for 3, a different symbol for each order of magnitude. It is clumsy to add or subtract. You need an abacus or a dust board. It is a chore, but with the new way, he continues, wiping the wax clean, you simply write a 2 and then a 3. The place of the number tells you its value. This is the column for the ones. This is the column for the tens. You understand this much. It is elegant, efficient. But then your eye is drawn to that 10th symbol, the little circle. But what is this? You ask, pointing to the circle. Ah, Al-Hassan says, a slow smile spreading across his face. That is the most dangerous idea of all. That is cipher, he explains. What happens if you want to write the number 205? You need a 2 in the hundreds column and a 5 in the ones column. But the tens column is empty. In the old system, you just leave a space, which is ambiguous and can lead to terrible errors. But in the Hindu system, you place this symbol, cipher, in the empty column to hold its place. You stare at the symbol, a circle, a dot. It represents nothing, so its value is nothing. You ask, your mind struggling to grasp the concept. Precisely, Al-Hassan confirms. It is a number that is not a number. It is the symbol for absence, and yet, without it, the entire system collapses. It is the pillar of the whole edifice. It is the emptiness that gives all the other numbers their proper place and power. This is a breathtaking, paradoxical idea. You have spent your life surrounded by books filled with words, with substance, with meaning. Now you are being told that the most powerful new idea is a symbol for the absolute lack of substance. It feels like a philosopher's riddle, not a tool for calculation. This is the very moment of conceptual revolution, the introduction of zero into a place. Value system was a mathematical leap of profound significance, a mainstream historical fact that is easy to state but hard to truly appreciate. It unlocked the potential for complex arithmetic, for algebra, for all of modern mathematics. You are standing at the epicenter of that conceptual earthquake. And then you remember something else. You have heard the word cipher used in another context. You have heard the translators use it not to mean empty, but to mean a code or a secret message. The word that means zero also means cipher. This strange duality, this niche linguistic fact, suddenly feels deeply profound. This symbol for nothingness is also the secret key, the code that unlocks the entire system. You wonder how this new system will be received. This is a topic historians will debate. Was there resistance to this new mathematics from merchants and scribes who had spent their entire lives mastering the abacus and the old alphabetic systems? Was this new cipher viewed with suspicion as a kind of magical trick? The adoption of new technologies is never seamless, and the idea of a number that means nothing must have seemed absurd to many practical-minded people. Al-Hassan closes the book. The lesson over. Now you understand, he says. The Caliph does not seek this book for a simple calculation. He seeks it because he understands that the power to calculate is the power to build, to tax, to navigate, and to understand the heavens. This little circle is more powerful than any sword. You look at your own hands, the hands of a librarian. You have touched a book that contains a revolution, the idea of Sefer, of a beautiful, powerful, and essential nothingness, has now been planted in your mind. And you know, with a certainty that makes you shiver, that it will change everything. Hey guys, tonight we are not venturing into a dusty tomb or marching with a Roman legion. No, we're heading to a place where the battles were fought with ink and parchment, and the greatest treasures were not gold, but ideas. We're traveling to the golden age of the Abbasid Caliphate, to the magnificent city of Baghdad, to spend a day in a job that might sound a little quiet. We're going to be a librarian. But this isn't your local library. This is the Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, the single greatest center of knowledge on planet Earth. The most dangerous thing you're likely to face is a paper cut from a priceless Greek manuscript. But hey, the intellectual stakes are vertigo-inducingly high, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support means the world. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments what city you're listening from and what time it is for you. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing that enters your awareness is not light, but sound. It's a single human voice, stretched and beautiful, rising from the minaret of a nearby mosque. The muezzin's call to prayer, the adhan, is the thread that stitches the day together in Baghdad. And this first call, before the sun has even risen, is the most peaceful. It pours into your small room, a river of sound that washes away the last remnants of your dreams. Slowly, light follows. It doesn't burst in, but filters through the intricate wooden latticework of your window, a screen known as a mashrabiyah. It's a beautiful and practical piece of architecture, designed to let in the cool morning air while affording privacy, and it throws a complex mosaic of pale gray light onto the far wall of your room. You lie for a moment on your sleeping mat on the floor, watching the patterns shift as the sky outside brightens from charcoal to a soft, pre-dawn lavender. Your room is simple. You are a man of knowledge, not a wealthy merchant. A clay jug of water sits in the corner, its surface cool to the touch. A small wooden chest holds your few changes of clothes. But on a small, low table, there are 2 books. They are your own, hand-copied, a luxury that still fills you with a quiet sense of pride. One is a collection of poetry, the other, a treatise on geometry. They are your most prized possessions. The city is waking up now, and the sounds and smells begin to drift in. The singular voice of the muezzin is replaced by a growing chorus. The distant braying of a donkey, the rhythmic thump of a baker slapping flatbread against the inside of his clay oven. The chatter of your neighbors starting their day. The smells follow the irresistible scent of that fresh, hot bread, the faint, earthy dampness of the nearby Tigris River, and something else, something sharp and clean under it all. It's the smell of ink and paper, the smell of the city's defining industry, the production of knowledge. You rise, pour some water from the jug into a bowl, and wash the sleep from your face. The water is cool, and a welcome shock. You dress in a simple, clean tunic of undyed cotton and pull on a pair of soft leather slippers. Your breakfast is as simple as your room. 2 sweet, sticky dates and a piece of the flatbread you will buy from the baker on your way to work. Stepping out of your small house, you enter a narrow, winding alleyway. You live in one of the many residential quarters that make up the great round city of Baghdad. This city was founded less than a century ago by the Caliph al-Mansur as a perfect circle, a statement of cosmic order and power. At its very center are the Caliph's palace and the Grand Mosque, and from that center, the city radiates outwards in concentric rings. While the grand design is well documented, the exact layout of the maze-like residential streets, where people like you actually lived, is something historians are still trying to piece together from fragmentary descriptions. You are walking through a puzzle that future scholars would give anything to solve. The air in the alley is already thick with the energy of the day. You greet your neighbors, a weaver and a metalworker, as you make your way towards one of the main thoroughfares. This is the beating heart of the Abbasid Empire, and for a brief, brilliant period, it is the center of the entire world. Knowledge from Greece, Persia, India, and beyond flows into this city to be translated, studied, and expanded upon. It is a mainstream historical fact that this era, the Islamic Golden Age, was one of the most intellectually fertile periods in human history. But for you, this isn't history. It is simply Tuesday, and you have a job to do. You are not a translator, a scholar, or a scientist, not one of the great minds whose names will be remembered. You are something just as important. You are the keeper of their work. You are a librarian at the House of Wisdom. Your destination, as it is every morning, lies at the very heart of this intellectual universe, and you must not be late. You leave the quiet residential alley and step into one of the main arteries of the city. The change is immediate and overwhelming, a plunge into a rushing river of humanity. The street is wide and unpaved, packed with an astonishing variety of people. A caravan of camels, laden with silks from the east, plods patiently through the crowd, their bells chiming a deep, metallic rhythm. Merchants shout their wares in a dozen different accents. The crisp Arabic of the Quraysh, the melodic Farsi of a Persian rug seller, the guttural Aramaic of a Christian spice trader. The air is a thick perfume of cardamom, roasting lamb expensive odd from the perfumer's stall, and the ever-present, dusty scent of 1,000 moving bodies. This is your daily commute, a walk through the very heart of the civilized world. You are walking through the great round city, Madinat al-Salam, the city of peace. The Caliph al-Mansur's grand vision, brought to life less than a century ago, was a masterpiece of urban planning. He didn't just build a city, he built a symbol, a perfect circle, protected by two massive outer walls made of sun-dried mud bricks, with a deep moat in between. It was designed to be a fortress, a capital, and a declaration of power all in one. You pass under the shadow of the main wall, a truly colossal structure, rumored to be so wide that a horseman could ride along its top. Set into this wall are 4 immense gates, each a fortress in its own right, and each pointing towards a different corner of the vast Abbasid Empire. The Kufa Gate, the Basra Gate, the Khorasan Gate, and the Damascus Gate. This design was a statement. All roads, all power, all knowledge flowed from the world into Baghdad. You walk towards the Khorasan Gate, the main northeastern entrance. As you do, you pass the sprawling, chaotic, and wonderfully vibrant market district of Kark. This is a fun little historical footnote. The Caliph al-Mansur, a man obsessed with order, originally planned for the city's main markets to be inside the walls, in the first ring of the city, but he quickly discovered that 1,000 merchants, their customers, their animals, and their cooking fires created an unbelievable amount of noise, smoke, and general mess. In a very relatable moment of urban frustration, he ordered the entire market complex to be moved outside the main gate, where it has since grown into a city in its own right. It is a classic case of a perfect plan meeting messy reality. The crowd thins slightly as you pass through the iron-plated doors of the Khorasan Gate, nodding to the uniformed guards of the Shurta, the city's police force. You are now inside the main circle. The architecture here is more planned, more orderly. The streets are wider, and the buildings are grander. This area is home to the administrative offices of the empire and the residences of high-ranking military commanders and court officials. You see scribes hurrying along with scrolls tucked under their arms, soldiers in polished helmets, and even a group of scholars in deep conversation, their hands gesturing wildly as they debate a point of logic. The diversity is still here, but it is of a different kind. You see a Nestorian Christian priest, his dark robes a stark contrast to the white and cream tunics around him, heading towards the caliph's court. These Christian scholars were instrumental in the early translation movement, bringing their deep knowledge of Greek and Syriac to the service of the Caliph. You see Jewish merchants, whose trading networks stretched from Spain to India, and Persian engineers, whose ancient knowledge of hydraulics kept the city's canals flowing. Baghdad is not just an Arab city. It is a crucible where cultures and ideas are being melted down and reforged into something new. Your destination lies at the very center of the circle, in the most exclusive and protected area. After passing through another inner wall, you finally enter the vast central plaza. Here, in the heart of it all, stand the two most important buildings in the empire: the magnificent Great Mosque and the Caliph's own residence, the Palace of the Golden Gate, so named for its shimmering main entrance. And somewhere, right here, is your workplace. This is where things get a little hazy, a detail that historians are still passionately arguing about. Where exactly was the House of Wisdom? Was it a grand, separate building with its own libraries, observatories, and courtyards, as some accounts suggest? Or was it, as others believe, an extension of the Caliph's own palace, a series of wings and halls dedicated to this great project of collecting and translating the world's knowledge? The texts are ambiguous. For you, it is simply a reality. You walk past the imposing facade of the palace, towards a familiar, arched gateway set in a high wall. This is the entrance. You don't know if you are entering a separate institution or the Caliph's own backyard. You only know that behind this gate lies the greatest concentration of human knowledge ever assembled in one place. You pass through the arched gateway, and the boisterous, chaotic symphony of the city fades behind you, replaced by a profound and reverent quiet. The air itself seems to change, becoming cooler, stiller, and scented with the dry, sweet perfume of aging paper and old leather. You are no longer in the city of merchants and soldiers. You are in the city of words. You have arrived at the Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. The first thing you see is a vast, open courtyard. In its center, a fountain splashes into a marble basin, the sound of the water a gentle, constant rhythm in the quiet air. The courtyard is a masterpiece of Islamic garden design, a perfect square divided into 4 smaller squares by intersecting water channels, meant to evoke the 4 rivers of paradise described in the Quran. Orange trees and date palms are planted in neat rows, their dark green leaves a vibrant contrast to the sun-bleached sandstone of the surrounding buildings. The space is designed for contemplation, for quiet conversation, for the refreshment of a mind weary from study. Even at this early hour, the courtyard is not empty. You see a small group of scholars sitting on a carved stone bench, their heads bent together over a large, open manuscript. One of them is drawing a complex geometric shape in the sand. With a stick, arguing a point from Euclid, you recognize another man, a famous physician, walking slowly along the colonnaded arcade that surrounds the courtyard, his lips moving silently as he memorizes a passage from Galen. This is the heartbeat of the House of Wisdom, not a silent, dusty archive, but a living, breathing community of thinkers. Your own destination is a large, 2-story building on the far side of the courtyard. This is the Khazanat al-Kutub, the library, the very core of the institution. Its entrance is a grand archway decorated with intricate geometric tilework, a style that is just beginning to flourish and will one day become the hallmark of Islamic architecture. The sheer size of the building is a statement. This is not a small private collection. This is an imperial project, funded by the Caliph himself, with the grand ambition of gathering all the knowledge of the world under one roof. You step through the archway into the main hall. Light streams in from high, arched windows, illuminating millions of dancing dust motes and falling on dozens of reading stands and low tables. The scale of the collection is breathtaking. Books, or more accurately, codices and scrolls, are stored in a way that is both practical and beautiful. They are not crammed onto shelves in the modern sense. Instead, they are kept in recessed niches built directly into the thick walls. each niche covered by a wooden door to protect the precious contents from light and dust. Each niche is a small library in itself, dedicated to a specific subject: astronomy in one, medicine in another, philosophy, mathematics, alchemy, geography. This organizational system is a fascinating subject of scholarly debate. While we know the House of Wisdom had a vast collection, the exact method of cataloging is lost to us. Were there master lists written on papyrus? Was there a color-coding system? Did each librarian, like you, simply hold a vast mental map of the collection in their head? It's a librarian's mystery for the ages. You see your superior, the chief librarian, a stern but fair man named Al-Hassan, already at his large wooden desk. He is a formidable scholar in his own right, a man who can debate the finer points of Aristotelian logic and then turn around and calculate the precise day of the next eclipse. He looks up as you approach and gives a curt nod of greeting. "Good morning," he says, his voice a low rumble. "A new shipment arrived from the Byzantine frontier late yesterday. Mostly Greek. They are in the receiving room. I want them sorted and registered before the noon prayer." This is the lifeblood of the House of Wisdom. The caliphs, particularly Al-Mun, were not passive collectors. They were active, even aggressive, acquirers of knowledge. They sent emissaries to Constantinople, to monasteries in Syria, to ancient libraries in Persia and India, with instructions to buy or copy any important text they could find. Legend has it that the caliph would sometimes demand manuscripts as a condition of a peace treaty with a defeated enemy, valuing a book by Ptolemy more than a chest of gold. While this is likely an exaggeration, it captures the spirit of the age. Knowledge was the most valuable currency, the ultimate symbol of imperial power and prestige. You bow your head in acknowledgement. "It will be done," you say. Your job today is not to debate philosophy or translate ancient Greek. It is something far more fundamental, the bedrock upon which all that other work is built. Your job is to bring order to the constant, glorious influx of information that is pouring into this building from every corner of the known world. You are a gatekeeper of knowledge, the first person to touch these new arrivals, to assess their contents, and to find them their proper home in this magnificent, ever-growing city of words. The revelation of Cipher leaves your mind buzzing. It's like being shown a new, invisible color that has been hiding in the spectrum of light all along. You spend the next hour in a kind of daze, going about your duties, reshelving books, but your thoughts are not entirely on your work. They are on that little circle, that powerful nothingness. The world feels subtly different, rearranged by a single, simple idea. It's in this slightly altered state of mind that you are approached by your next patron. And it is perhaps the perfect state of mind to be in to receive his strange request. You are in a quiet, less frequented aisle of the library, replacing a heavy copy of Galen's work on anatomy. The air here is still and smells of deep time. Suddenly, a figure appears at the end of the aisle, seeming to materialize out of the shadows. It is Khalid, the alchemist you spoke with this morning in the scriptorium. He is no longer the boisterous, friendly debater of ink recipes. His energy is different now, quieter, more intense, more secretive. He glances left and right, as if to ensure you are alone. "Librarian," he says, his voice a low whisper that barely disturbs the dust motes dancing in the slanted light. "A moment of your time. I seek a text, not one of the usuals. Not a recipe for a pigment or a treatise on the distillation of rosewater." You wait, your curiosity piqued. Khalid represents a fascinating and ambiguous corner of the House of Wisdom. On the one hand, his work is undeniably practical. Alchemy, as practiced by the great master Jabir ibn Hayyan, is the bedrock of modern chemistry. It is a science of experimentation and classification. Alchemists have given the world new acids that can dissolve metals, new techniques for purifying medicines, and new alloys of remarkable strength. Their work is part of the great rationalist project of this place. And yet, there is another side to it, a mystical side, a side that speaks not of chemical reactions, but of cosmic sympathies, of the souls of metals, of a secret, hidden key that can unlock the very secrets of creation. I need to consult the writings of Hermes Trismegistus. Khalid whispers, his eyes fixed on you. I need the tablet, the one of green stone. He is speaking of the Emerald Tablet. It is not a book in the conventional sense, but a short, cryptic text that is rumored to be the key to all alchemical knowledge. Hermes Trismegistus, its supposed author, is a legendary figure, a fusion of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, said to be an ancient sage who received a direct revelation from God. This request takes you to the very edge of the map of knowledge, to the boundary where science and mysticism bleed into one another. This is a topic of intense debate, both in your time and for future historians. What was the true nature of alchemy? Was it a proto-science, a fumbling but sincere attempt to understand the material world through experimentation? Or was it a spiritual discipline, a philosophical allegory where the transmutation of lead into gold was a metaphor for the purification of the human soul? The House of Wisdom, in its quest to gather all knowledge, seems to hold both views at once, without feeling the need to resolve the contradiction. The Emerald Tablet is not a book to be checked out, you say, your voice equally low. You are not scolding him, you are stating a fact. A text that, legendary, if it exists, would be in the treasury, with the caliph's most precious holdings. I know, Khalid says, a flicker of impatience in his eyes. I do not need the original, I need the commentary. The one written by Belinus of Tyana. He saw the tablet himself, in the tomb of Hermes. He copied the inscription. We have it. I know we do. He is right. You have seen it. Once it is not filed under chemistry or mineralogy. It is located in a small, dusty section of the library that has no official name, but which the librarians privately call the Esoterica section. This is where the strange books live, the treatises on astrology, the manuals for interpreting dreams, the books on the magical properties of gems. It is the library's mystical attic. You lead Khalid to this forgotten corner. The air here is thick with a sense of possibility, a feeling that the normal rules of logic might be temporarily suspended. You find the text he seeks. It is not an impressive codex, but a slim volume made of cheap paper, as if the copyist was in a great hurry. The title is simple, The Book of the Secret of Creation and the Art of Nature. Khalid takes it from you, his hands almost trembling with eagerness. He opens it, his eyes scanning the page, and a look of profound satisfaction comes over him. He seems to find the passage he is looking for. He reads it aloud, his voice a reverent whisper. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to perform the miracles of the one thing. This is the famous, enigmatic opening of the tablet, a phrase that is more of a Zen koan than a scientific formula. It is a perfect, quirky little encapsulation of the mystical worldview, the idea that the microcosm of the human world mirrors the macrocosm of the divine, and that by understanding one, you can manipulate the other. It is the philosophical justification for all magic. The one thing. Khalid breathes, closing the book. The first matter, the seed from which all metals grow. He looks at you, his eyes burning with an intensity that is almost alarming. It is not a metaphor, librarian. It is real. And with it one can not only perfect metals, one can perfect the self, one can achieve takwin, the creation of life itself. You do not know what to say. He has just confessed to an ambition that is both breathtakingly arrogant and profoundly heretical. He is not just trying to make gold. He is trying to become God. Without another word, he takes the book, gives you a quick, grateful nod, and disappears back into the shadows of the stacks, leaving you alone in the aisle. You are left with the lingering, unsettling energy of his visit. You have spent your day with logicians, mathematicians, and astronomers, men who are using the sharpest tools of reason to bring order and clarity to the universe, and now you have come face to face with a man who is using that same knowledge to chase a dream, to unlock a mystery, to perform a miracle. The House of Wisdom, you realize, is not just a house of answers. It is also, and perhaps more importantly, a house of beautiful, dangerous, and world-changing questions. The alchemist's intense, whispered revelations leave a strange, mystical residue in the air, a stark contrast to the rational order you strive to maintain. But the sun waits for no man's mystical quest. It continues its slow, majestic descent towards the western horizon, and the light inside the library begins to fail. The warm, golden afternoon light has deepened into a rich, dusty orange. The shadows of the tall wooden pillars and the rows of book niches stretch long and dark across the floor, like ink spills from a giant's pen. This is the signal that your long day is drawing to a close. The House of Wisdom does not operate at night. There are no flickering oil lamps allowed in the main library. The risk of fire is too great, a fear that haunts every librarian in every age. The only light is the natural light of the sun, and as it departs, so too must the scholars. The quiet, focused hum of the afternoon begins to break apart. You hear the sound of heavy books being closed, the scraping of chairs being pushed back, the low murmur of conversations as colleagues pack away their work and prepare to leave. You see Jabir the philosopher, his earlier anxiety replaced by a serene, post-intellectual glow, carefully returning the precious copy of Aristotle to your desk. You see Kasim the astronomer striding out, his mind already on the calculations he will perform tonight at the observatory. Your final duties of the day are the reverse of your first. You are no longer a dispenser of knowledge, but a collector. You walk through the great hall, your footsteps echoing in the growing emptiness, gathering the manuscripts that have been left on the reading tables. Each book you pick up is a ghost of the work that was done with it today. This copy of Galen's Anatomy has a new smudge of ink on the margin, where a student physician was making a hasty note. This volume of poetry by Al-Mutanabbi is still open to the page that a weary translator was reading to refresh his soul. You are the custodian of these small, intimate histories. You handle each book with a familiar gentleness, checking for any new signs of wear, any turned-down corners, any loose pages. You are a shepherd, gathering your flock for the night. The process of reshelving is a ritual, a way of restoring the library's perfect order. You are a human algorithm, running a program of restoration. Philosophy goes back in its niche, medicine in its poetry, in its. You are resetting the great intellectual machine to its starting position, ready for the questions and challenges of a new day. This is a part of your job that is almost entirely invisible to the scholars you serve. They see the library as a static, eternal resource, a well from which they can draw knowledge at will. They do not see the constant, patient, behind-the-scenes labor that is required to maintain that illusion of effortless order. Historians of the future will write volumes about the great translators and the brilliant scientists of the House of Wisdom, but they will find almost no record of the names or lives of the librarians, like you, the men who made their work possible. Your legacy is not a famous book or a scientific discovery. Your legacy is the library itself, this perfectly functioning system. As you work, you notice Al-Hassan, the chief librarian, conducting his own final ritual. He is at his desk, not with a book, but with a large leather-bound ledger and an abacus. He is doing the accounts. Even this great temple of the mind has a budget. The new shipment of parchment from Syria must be paid for. The scribes in the scriptorium must be allocated their wages of bread and beer. The man who supplies the oil for the lamps in the administrative offices must be compensated. It is a mundane, but essential, reality. The pursuit of pure knowledge runs on the very practical fuel of trade and administration. This is a quirky, often overlooked detail. The intellectual explosion of the Islamic Golden Age was underpinned by a sophisticated and highly organized bureaucracy. The last of the scholars have departed. The only people left in the Great Hall are you and Al-Hassan. The silence is now profound. It is not an empty silence. It is a silence filled with the latent potential of the hundreds of thousands of words sleeping on the shelves around you. It feels like standing in a forest at night, aware of the immense, dormant life all around you. Al-Hassan finishes his calculations and closes the heavy ledger. He looks around the vast, shadowy room, his gaze sweeping across the rows of silent books. He is not looking at his place of work. He is looking at his kingdom. A look of deep, quiet satisfaction is on his face. The day is done, he says to you, his voice softer than you've ever heard it. The city of words is at peace. You finish shelving the last book, run your hand one last time over the cool leather of its binding, and close the wooden door of the niche. Order is restored. You give a slight bow to Al-Hassan, a gesture of respect between two men who share the same quiet, vital duty. It is time to go home. You step out of the grand archway of the library, back into the central courtyard. The transformation is profound. The fierce white heat of the day has been replaced by the cool, gentle balm of twilight. The sky is no longer a blank, sun-bleached canvas. It is a deep, bruised purple, streaked with the last, fading embers of the sunset in shades of orange and rose. The air is still, and the only sound is the soft, constant splashing of the fountain, a liquid whisper in the growing darkness. You are one of the last to leave. The great house of wisdom is behind you, a silent, sleeping giant, its vast collection of thoughts and dreams locked away for the night. You feel the familiar, pleasant ache of a day's work in your shoulders, the satisfying weariness of a mind and body put to good use. You begin your journey home, your soft leather slippers making almost no sound on the cool flagstones. Your path is the reverse of your morning commute, a journey from the ordered, rarefied heart of the empire back out into the messy, vibrant, living city. You pass through the inner gate, leaving the exclusive central plaza behind. The grand administrative buildings and the homes of the court officials are quiet now, their windows beginning to glow with the soft, flickering light of oil lamps. The sounds of the city begin to return, but they are different from the frantic, energetic sounds of the morning. This is the evening chorus, the sound of families gathering for their evening meal, the distant notes of an ode being played in a private courtyard, the laughter of children playing one last game in the street before being called inside. You walk through the great Khorasan gate, leaving the perfect circle of the main city behind. You plunge once more into the sprawling, chaotic district of Kark. The market stalls are closed, the merchants having packed away their silks and spices, but the area is still teeming with life. The food stalls are doing a brisk trade, the air thick with the delicious, smoky scent of grilled meat and the sweet aroma of honey cakes. The tea houses are full, men sitting on low stools, sipping hot, sweet tea from small glass cups, their voices a low, contented murmur. This transition from the silent, intellectual world of the House of Wisdom to the loud, sensual, and very real world of the city at night is one you make every day. And it strikes you now more powerfully than ever that the two are not separate. They are deeply, inextricably linked. The abstract, philosophical debates about the nature of justice you hear in the library's courtyard are meant to shape the real laws that are being enforced by the city guards you pass on the street. The astronomical calculations being made by men like Kasim are what allow the sea captains, whose ships are moored down at the river docks, to navigate their way to India and back, bringing the very spices whose scent now fills the air. The medical texts you so carefully preserve are the source of the remedies that the local doctor is prescribing to a sick child in a small house just down the alley. The House of Wisdom is not a tower of ivory, disconnected from the world. It is the city's brain, its central nervous system, processing information and sending out the signals that allow the great, complex body of the empire to function. This is a crucial point that historians will sometimes miss. This was not knowledge for knowledge's sake alone. It was a deeply practical and applied project, an engine of civilization. You buy a piece of warm flatbread for your dinner from a baker who recognizes you and gives you a friendly nod. You turn into your own quiet residential alley. The familiar, comforting darkness closes in around you. You see the warm sliver of light from under your own door. You are home. You enter your small room, light your own simple oil lamp, and sit down to your meal. As you eat, you think back on your day. You have held in your hands a 1,000-year-old Greek manuscript and a brand new book printed on paper from China. You have listened to a debate about the eternal soul and a debate about the chemical composition of ink. You have provided a book that will help to measure the stars, and another that contains a secret, mystical key to the universe. You have been a part of a conversation that stretches from Plato to the Caliph, from India to Baghdad, and you have touched the power of nothingness, the beautiful world-changing idea of Sefer. It was just another Tuesday, a quiet, ordinary, and completely remarkable day in the life of a librarian. And tomorrow, you will wake to the sound of the morning prayer, and you will do it all again. And now, your own day is done. The bustling, vibrant city of Baghdad fades into the soft focus of a dream. The great house of wisdom closes its doors, its intellectual treasures sleeping silently in the cool, dark niches. The librarian, the quiet hero of our story, is at rest in his simple room, the day's extraordinary events dissolving into the peaceful rhythm of his breathing. Feel the story gently recede, leaving behind not the details of manuscripts or the arguments of philosophers, but a feeling of quiet satisfaction, of order restored, of a good day's work completed. Let that feeling settle over you now. The journey through the bustling streets and the hushed halls is over. You have arrived at your own quiet harbor. There are no more books to be shelved, no more questions to be answered. There is only the stillness of your room, the gentle weight of your own comfortable darkness. Let the last echoes of the story become the first whispers of your own dreams. The day is complete. The city of your mind is at peace. The story is complete. Good night. You make your way to the receiving room, a space that lacks the grandeur of the main library, but buzzes with a different kind of energy. This is the library's digestive system, the place where the raw, chaotic influx of knowledge from the outside world is broken down, identified, and prepared for its new life within these walls. The room smells of the road, of leather travel satchels, oiled wood from packing crates, and the faint, foreign dust of distant lands. The new shipment is stacked on a long, low table. It's a motley collection. There are sturdy, leather-bound codices, the familiar book format, with stacked, folded pages, and more traditional scrolls, rolled and tied with string. Some are wrapped in protective cloth, others are simply stacked, their edges already showing the wear of a long journey. This is your workbench. Your first task is to create an initial inventory, a simple list of what has arrived before the items are passed on to the more senior scholars for detailed cataloging. You pick up the first item, a heavy, impressive-looking codex. The wooden boards of its cover are thick and bound in dark brown goat leather, worn smooth with time. You carefully untie the leather straps that hold it shut and open it. The pages are thick, stiff, and have a creamy, almost waxy texture. This is parchment, the skin of a sheep or goat, painstakingly scraped, stretched, and treated until it becomes a durable, luminous writing surface. You can feel its organic origin. You run your thumb over a blank margin and can almost feel the ghost of the life it once held. The Greek text is written in a neat, professional hand, the dark brown ink standing out starkly against the pale background. This is the gold standard for important books, a technology perfected over centuries. It is beautiful, it is durable. As you know, all too well, it is incredibly, ruinously expensive. To create a single book of this size might require the skins of an entire flock of sheep. It's not just a book, it's a herd. You make a note on your wax tablet, one codex, Greek, appears to be a commentary on Aristotle, parchment. You set it aside carefully. Then you pick up the next item. It is a much smaller, slimmer volume, bound in simple pressed boards. When you open it, the difference is night and day. The pages are much thinner, lighter, and more flexible. They don't have the living texture of parchment. They have a fibrous, woven quality. The surface is not as smooth, and the ink seems to have sunk into it more, becoming a part of the material itself rather than sitting on top of it. This is kagad, the revolutionary material that is changing your world. This is paper. You hold a page up to the light. It is less opaque than parchment, and you can see the faint, crisscrossing pattern of the plant fibers from which it was made. This technology, as everyone in your world knows, is a gift from the East, a secret captured from Chinese prisoners of war after the Battle of Talas nearly 50 years ago. That one, single battle, fought in a remote valley far to the northeast, did more to change the world of knowledge than 100 philosophical debates. The caliph's father had the wisdom to see the potential in the craft of these prisoners, and the first paper mill was established right here in Baghdad. Now, the city is the world's leading producer of this wondrous new material. Paper has one overwhelming advantage that trumps all others. It is cheap. It is made from old rags, hemp, and other plant fibers, materials that are abundant and inexpensive. A scholar can now afford to make his own copies of texts. A student can take notes. A poet can draft and redraft his work without worrying about the cost of a sheep. It is a democratizing force, and its effect is explosive. The very existence of the House of Wisdom on this scale is arguably only possible because of paper. This is a point of quiet contention, a topic that historians thousands of years from now will vigorously debate. Did paper completely and immediately replace parchment? From your perspective, the answer is no. You look at the two books side by side. For the most sacred of texts, a copy of the Holy Quran, for example, only the finest, most permanent material will do. Vellum, the skin of a calf, is still the preferred choice for a book meant to last for eternity. Parchment is for imperial decrees and major philosophical works, but for everything else, for commentaries, for translations, for scientific notes, for poetry, paper is the future. It is a stratified system. The medium is chosen to match the message. Some traditionalists still grumble that paper is flimsy, that it lacks the gravitas of animal skin, but they are a shrinking minority. You examine the paper manuscript more closely. You notice that on one of the first pages, the scribe made an error. The ink has been carefully scraped away, but it has left a rough, fuzzy patch that couldn't be written over. This is a small drawback. On parchment, an error could be meticulously scraped clean, and the surface polished smooth again for reuse, creating what future scholars will call a palimpsest. Paper, you note, is less forgiving of mistakes, but it is far more forgiving on the purse. You dip your reed pen into your inkwell and make your next note. One Codex Greek appears to be a medical text paper. You have just registered two different worlds. One, the ancient, expensive, and venerable world of the past. The other, the light, cheap, and fast-moving world of the future. Your job is to find a place for both of them on the same shelf. You're just finishing your initial sort of the new arrivals, your wax tablet, now filled with a neat column of notes, when the quiet rhythm of your work is broken. It's not a loud noise, just a sense of urgent presence at your elbow. You look up from a fragile-looking papyrus scroll to see a man who seems to be vibrating with intellectual anxiety. It's Jabir, one of the resident philosophers. He's a brilliant man, but one who often seems to be wearing his own thoughts, like a tangled, ill-fitting cloak. His tunic is rumpled. There's a fresh ink stain on his cheek, and his eyes have the far-away, hunted look of a man who has just wrestled with a particularly stubborn paradox and lost. "I need it," he says, without any preamble. His voice is a conspiratorial whisper that's still somehow loud enough to make you wince. You are a librarian. You are used to this. You know that it is never just it. It is a specific, often obscure, and desperately needed piece of knowledge. You maintain a calm, professional demeanor. "Good morning to you too, Jabir. What is it that you need?" "The Organon," he says, running a hand through his already chaotic hair. "Aristotle, but not just any copy. I need Hunayn's translation, the one with the commentary by Themistus. The copy that came from the monastery at Nisibis. I know we have it. I saw it myself 2 moons ago, but the universe has conspired to hide it from me." Your heart sinks just a little. This is not a simple request. The Organon is Aristotle's collection of 6 major works on logic, and it is one of the absolute cornerstones of the entire translation movement. It is a foundational text, And the House of Wisdom has multiple copies, Greek originals, earlier Syriac translations, and several different Arabic versions. Jabir is asking for a very specific and very valuable one. Hunayn ibn Ishaq, the man whose translation he wants, is a living legend. A Nestorian Christian physician and scholar, he is without question the most important translator of his generation, perhaps of any generation. His method is the gold standard. He doesn't just translate word for word, he seeks to understand the essential meaning of a text and then render it into beautiful, clear, and precise Arabic. A book that has passed through Hunayn's hands is not just a copy, it is a guaranteed masterpiece of scholarship. This is your mainstream historical fact. The translation movement was not a monolithic enterprise. It was the work of brilliant individuals, like Hunayn, whose personal skill and reputation were paramount. Of course, you say, your voice much calmer than you feel. Let us find it for you. Now comes the real test of your skill. There is no central card catalog, no searchable database. The library's organizational system is a complex tapestry woven from location, subject, language, and your own memory. This is the great, unanswered question that bedevils modern historians who study this place. How did you find anything? Was there a master inventory, a firist, for the entire collection? Was it organized by the date of acquisition, or was it, as seems most likely, a hybrid system that relied heavily on the institutional knowledge of the librarians? You are the walking, talking search engine. You lead Jabir from the receiving room back into the soaring space of the main library. The search begins. First, you go to the section for philosophy. The niches here are tall and deep. You know that the top 2 rows are for Arabic translations, while the bottom 2 are for the Greek and Syriac originals. That's the first level of sorting. You run your hand along the carved wooden doors of the bottom niches, your mind racing. You are looking for a codex, not a scroll, and a large one at that. Aristotle's logic is not a slim volume. You open a niche dedicated to logic, thety, rhetoric, Greek. The cool, dry air from within wafts out. You see a dozen or so codices, their leather-bound spines facing you. There is no writing on the spines. This is a crucial and frustrating little detail about books of this era. The practice of putting the title on the spine of the book has not yet been invented. To identify a book, you have to take it out and look at the first page. You begin the patient process, pulling out each heavy parchment volume, resting it on a nearby reading stand, and opening the cover. You see the beautiful, alien shapes of the Greek alphabet. You can't read the language fluently, but you can recognize the name Aristoteles and the titles of his works. You find 3 different copies of the Organon, but a quick glance at the scribe's hand tells you that none of them are the famous Hunayn translation you're looking for. Jabir hovers behind you, muttering to himself. The syllogism is the key, he whispers. But if the premise is built on a flawed translation, the entire edifice of reason collapses. You close your eyes for a moment, ignoring him, and try to visualize the library. You picture the day the Nisibis collection arrived. You remember the excitement. It was a major acquisition. It wouldn't have been placed with the general collection. It would have been put somewhere special. Of course, the caliph's private collection. A special set of niches, closer to the chief librarian's desk, reserved for the newest, most valuable, or most politically sensitive acquisitions. You walk with renewed purpose to the other side of the hall, Jabir trailing in your wake like a nervous shadow. You approach a beautifully carved set of niches, inlaid with ivory. You open one, and there it is. The codex is unmistakable. The leather is a deep, rich red, and the clasps are made of silver. You lift it out. It is heavy, not just with the weight of the parchment, but with the weight of its own importance. You open it to the first page. The Arabic is breathtakingly elegant, the work of a master calligrapher. And there, at the bottom of the page, is the colophon, the scribe's note, translated by Hunayn ibn Ishaq from the Greek, for the library of the commander of the faithful. You have found it. You turn and present the book to Jabir. He takes it with the reverence a priest would show a holy relic. His whole demeanor changes. The anxiety melts away, replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated joy. He holds the book to his chest, gives you a frantic, grateful nod, and then scurries away to a reading table without another word. His intellectual universe saved. You are left alone in the aisle, the quiet hum of the library settling around you once more. The quiet satisfaction of a successful search settles over you. It is a small victory, but in a world built of small, precise details, it feels significant. You've not only located a piece of knowledge, you've helped a mind in motion to continue on its path. That, you think, is the essence of your job. Before you can return to the receiving room, Al-Hassan, the chief librarian, catches your eye and beckons you over to his desk. He doesn't waste time on pleasantries. He holds up the slim, paper-bound codex that you had registered earlier. The Greek medical text. This one, he says, his voice low and decisive. I've had a quick look. It appears to be a rare commentary on the work of Dioscorides, concerning the medicinal properties of plants. The caliph's personal physician has been searching for something like this. It is to be prioritized. He hands the book to you. The paper feels light and modern in your hands after the ancient, heavy weight of Aristotle on parchment. Take it to the translation wing. Give it to Johanna. He will know who to assign it to. You nod and take the book, cradling it carefully. Your next task is to carry this seed of knowledge to the place where it will be planted in new soil. You leave the grand, silent hall of the library and walk back across the central courtyard. You take a different path this time, heading towards a long, single-story building on the eastern side of the complex. As you approach, the gentle sound of the fountain is gradually replaced by a different kind of noise. It's not loud, but it's persistent and complex. It is the sound of focused work. A low, continuous murmur of voices speaking in different languages, the soft rustle of paper and parchment, and the rhythmic, gentle scratching of dozens of reed pens. This is the Dar al-Tarjama, the house of translation. If the library is the storehouse of knowledge, this is the factory. You push open the heavy wooden door and step inside. The room is long and filled with light from a series of high arched windows that face north, providing bright, indirect light that is perfect for reading and writing. The space is organized with a number of large, flat-topped tables around which the scholars are at work. Some work alone, their brows furrowed in concentration. Others work in pairs, their heads bent close together, speaking in low, intense whispers. The diversity of the room is astonishing, a living testament to the caliphate's policy of hiring the best minds, regardless of their faith or origin. This is the great, undeniable fact of the translation movement. It was a profoundly multicultural and multi-faith enterprise. You see Stephanus, a Persian scholar and a follower of the ancient Zoroastrian faith, carefully comparing a Pahlavi text with an Arabic draft. You see Thabit ibn Qurra, a Sabian from Haran, a so-called star worshipper, who is one of the greatest mathematicians and astronomers of the age, arguing a point with a Jewish colleague. And, of course, you see a great many Nestorian and Syriac Christians like Johanna, the man you are looking for. Their knowledge of Greek, often passed down in an unbroken line from the time of Alexander, makes them the indispensable bridge between the ancient world and the new Arabic-speaking empire. You spot Johanna at the far end of the room. He is a venerable man with a long white beard and the patient eyes of someone who has spent a lifetime untangling the complex sentences of ancient philosophers. You watch him for a moment as he works with a younger Muslim scholar. The younger man is holding an Arabic text, and Johanna is reading aloud from a Syriac manuscript, his finger tracing the lines. This is the famous two-step process in action. Many Greek texts were first translated into Syriac, a language closely related to Aramaic, and only then translated from Syriac into Arabic. This method, while slow, often resulted in a more accurate and nuanced final product. You approach the table, and Johanna looks up. You explain your purpose and hand him the new medical text. He takes it, his practiced hands feeling the texture of the paper. "From China to Baghdad to our hands," he murmurs, a note of wonder in his voice. Much faster than a flock of sheep, he opens the book and his eyes scan the Greek. A flicker of excitement crosses his face. Ah, yes, this is good, very good. It will clarify several obscure passages in the master's original work. As you stand there, you overhear two junior translators at the next table joking with each other in low voices. Work hard, one of them whispers with a grin. Perhaps the caliph will pay you our weight in gold. This is a famous, almost legendary story that circulates through the House of Wisdom that the Caliph al-Ma'mun was so pleased with the work of his translators that he paid them the equivalent weight of their finished books in pure gold. Historians of the future will debate this endlessly. Was it literally true, or was it a beautiful piece of propaganda, a story designed to advertise the caliph's immense patronage of the sciences? Either way, the legend speaks to a deeper truth. In this building, at this moment in history, this work is considered more precious than any jewel. Johanna has already decided who will work on the new text. He calls over a young, eager-looking man and gives him the book along with a stream of quiet instructions. You look around the room one last time. They are translating medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. But you realize they are not translating everything. The great Greek plays of Sophocles and Euripides, the epic poems of Homer, these are left on the shelves in the library. There is a great, ongoing scholarly debate about this selective translation. Was it because the Arabs of your time saw little of practical value in Greek poetry and drama? Or was it because the pagan polytheistic worldview of those stories was seen as incompatible with the stern monotheism of Islam? For whatever reason, the knowledge being forged here is not a perfect mirror of the ancient world, but a curated, edited collection focused on science, reason, and logic. Your task is complete. You give a slight bow to Johanna and walk out of the translation wing, leaving the quiet, productive hum of 100 brilliant minds behind you.